patients are hearing lots of buzzwords for them: targeted therapy, personalized medicine. They understand chemotherapy, they understand radiation therapy, but while all of this language is going about, you read about it, it's in the media all the time, unless you, let's say, get diagnosed and really get infused in the world of oncology, I think it just floats over people's heads. It's not real, it's not tangible, and I think that we need to do a better job of explaining where cancer is going, the biology of cancer, what does a targeted therapy mean, what is the molecular basis of oncology, because then the idea of tissue, it all comes together and you can begin to connect the dots.
You're coming from this from two different perspectives. You have the academics who are trying to explain how, what these targets are, what DNA mutations are, what genomic testing means, and already I've said 3 words that, patients might not understand the relationship between them. So getting a single way of talking about science in a way that's easily understood from the academic or your physician perspective. And then you have companies that are developing these targeted therapies talking about biomarkers. Biomarkers, genomic testing, DNA, mutation, all these terms, they're really all talking about the same thing. And we need to come up with a common nomenclature, a common way of talking about this to really be able to to tell patients, cancer is characterized by mutations. Mutations drive growth. We can target those things with therapies, and that simple, A to Z, and where all these things fit in is challenging.
And the public, I don't think, realizes they and we are living through one of the most dramatic scientific times of our lifetime. And young doctors on the cusp, just coming into oncology, many of us will be gone by the time, and they're going to live to see something that I probably won't live to see, but we're at the base of it, and the passion and excitement that we experience, how do we translate that to the public as well to raise the bar of hope?
I think these ineffective treatments are costing society, if you will, billions and billions of dollars and millions of lives in wasted effort, because they're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and it doesn't stick. I think everybody in this room would agree it's criminal not to understand what you're shooting your arrow at, in the old shotgun approach versus the laser-like or shooting an arrow at something. So in the case of lung, what the problem is, there are so few arrows to shoot at it. There's this sort of pessimistic attitude that there's very little that can be done, so just go home and get your affairs in order and go into hospice. And I think everybody on this panel and in this room would agree that that's grossly unacceptable. And as a society, we can't allow it. And I think the payer process of this, and breast is a great example. The breast cancer community has done a fabulous, probably the leading example of a community and a process that drove a standard of care. Patients go in now, they automatically get a biopsy. I could be wrong, but this is personal experience. This does happen, and out comes a complete treatment paradigm with survival curves and sequencing of treatments, et cetera. And that's where many of these all the other cancers need to get as well.
As long as we're only looking at tumor tissue, and I'm not plugging the Komen Bank, but I've grown to see the beauty of it, because we have the tissue out now and it's being worked on all over the world. A lot of people are finding that what they believed was the target, because they only had tumor tissue and they were creating targeted therapies for it, it was not a viable target. Thus, you have 2 or 3 failed clinical trials. So what I'm hoping is that when we with all of the cancers as we move forward, that we can start to think about a normal control, because there's your timeline, there's your money. If you know what the target is, not statistically, but in reality, you're going to cut down a lot of money, a lot of lives, and a lot of time. So it's not available in all disease processes, but there are many, many more models other than breast from which you could derive normal controls. To me, I feel like Steve does, well, with pancreatic, with inflammatory, time is money, lives are lost every day, and we get kind of used to it. You could throw 40,000 lives out a year with breast cancer and people it goes over your head, we're used to it. But in 1997, they said the largest obstacle to understanding and finding a cure and a cause for breast cancer was a lack of understanding of the normal mammary gland. It wasn't until we started the Komen tissue bank that we had normal tissue. In that time, 400,000 women died, and we hadn't addressed what was identified by the best in the world, the #1 obstacle to fixing this. And I think it probably translates to the other cancers as well.